Welcome to the webinar series on COVID-19 and emerging infectious diseases, hosted by the Policy Research at Hong Kong IAPS CUHK. The CUHK Policy Research at Hong Kong IAPS program was established to promote cross-boundary and interdisciplinary collaboration on policy research. We are pleased to present a series of webinars to share the works of our researchers across different faculties on issues related to the pandemic and implications on policy decisions. The outbreak of COVID-19 is drawing tremendous global and local public attention, not only to medical and epidemiological research, but also to interdisciplinary research in behavioral and social science that can inform policies. The fallout caused by this pandemic and future novel infectious diseases will bring continuing global challenges. More up-to-date academic research grounded on empirical scientific evidence is badly needed for public policy reference. Today's webinar is about rethinking education in the time of COVID-19. With lockdown and school closures, education has moved to online or blended modes. Students, teachers, and schools face many challenges in this new normal. The speakers today hope to share their experience and research in Hong Kong and look forward to exploring with you about the status of current school remote learning in Hong Kong during the pandemic. How are students, parents, and teachers responding to this challenge in different contexts? How can we address challenges, rethink education, and shape the future? We're pleased to have two speakers from our university, Professor Thomas Chiu, Assistant Professor of the Department of Curriculum and Instruction, and Professor Catherine McBride, Choh-Ming Lee Professor of Psychology at the Department of Psychology, CUHK. We also are fortunate to have the Director of our Hong Kong Institute of Asia Pacific Studies, Professor Anthony Fung, as our discussant. These two speakers will first speak for 20 minutes each, followed by a discussion by Professor Fung for 15 minutes. We will then open for the Q&A session. If you have any questions that you'd like to raise with any of the speakers, please send it into our chat box, and we will invite you to raise your question during the Q&A session. Let us then move to our first presentation by Professor Thomas Chiu. He'll be talking about reimagining learning experiences to maximize student engagement. Professor Chiu is Assistant Professor in Curriculum and Instruction at the Chinese University of Hong Kong. He has expertise in quantitative research in digital and STEM education and design-based research methodologies. His specializations include educational technology and motivation and learning. Currently, he is a self-determination theory international scholar and sits on the editorial boards of Frontiers in STEM Education and the Journal of Education and Training Studies. He served as the co-chair of the International Mobile Learning Festival. He is also an award-winning educator and school-university partnership director. Without further ado, please welcome Professor Thomas Chiu. Thomas.
Hello, thanks, Fanny. Hello, everyone. I hope that you look what I look like. I'm Thomas. So everyone, I think in Hong Kong is kind of colder. I hope that you are in a very warm places. Okay, I'm here this morning actually to talk about student experience in remote learning. I would say that the experience actually gave us a chances. I mean, as Fanny said, do we think what our school education should be? So I would like to share one of my studies done in secondary school. To begin this talk, I will share the study background. We will look at some statistics, and also discuss the challenges we have, and how we can create a new learning experience for our students. So let me share my screen. I forgot. So okay, it is my title. Let me make it bigger first. So it's the title of my talk. So you can see that in this study, I use self-determination theory as the main framework to explain student engagement. And then I think it's the motivation theory. In this theory, it suggests that all of us, so human, we have three basic needs. The first one is autonomy. We all want to feel in control of our behavior. The next one is competency. We all want to feel capable and effective. So the last one, I will say that, is relatedness. We want to feel connected and loved. When these three basically satisfies, our children would have greater motivation. Actually, this motivation is very important. It's a serve an energy there to engage them in to engage in learning. Actually, this theory is very popular. They have been using in many different face-to-face setting, but not in online learning. So we know very little to know, how to use this technology to support our young children. So in this study, and also we have another very important component is student engagement. Here's the 4 dimensions. So the first one is behavioral engagement. Just like a good sportsman, students work very hard to study. They watch all the video, complete all the tasks that given by the teachers. The next one is qualitative engagement, just like an explorer. They like to try something new. They like to accept all the challenges. The third dimension is emotional engagement, just like your lover. Your children, your lover, love your lesson, love the task that you gave it to them. They enjoy your teaching. The last one is agentic engagement, just like your student, just like a negotiator. They would tell you that what they want, what they need for their learning at home. This two actually is a main component in this study. So this slide, I give you the idea what this study about. The idea. You can see that there's a diagram. It's a research model. They show all the hypotheses, how they basically related to the 4 dimensions. And also in this study, I suggest 4 types of support: teacher, curriculum, digital, and parents. In the literature, we discuss a lot how to improve teacher support, but not curriculum and technology. Here is the questions for this study. So the first one, basically, okay, we have, in this study, we have some proposed model, but we have to confirm it. So the first question is just confirm it. The second question is, we have to identify that once it's done, how can we, what is the obstacle? What is the challenges that we have? The last question is, so what we learned from the COVID, the remote learning. So how can we move further, create something new for our students? So to achieve that, myself, I invited 1,200 students, 400 parents, 500 teachers to join this study. I used questionnaire and interview to understand their perception, and also study some online lesson and e-learning system. So let's look at some statistics. There are 3 numbers here. The first one is hundreds. All the students, they said that they complete all the synchronized lesson or asynchronous lesson. Asynchronous, that means that learning the video. This proves that our Hong Kong teachers, they step up and embrace the new learning environment. They work very hard to teach our young children. The second number I would like to talk about is 70. 70 of them talk about they actually prefer real-time lesson. That means soon, and also they prefer to learn different with different learning resources and also in a small groups. And the last number I would like to talk about is 20. 20% of the students think that don't think that they are not able to communicate online, and also they don't think, they don't feel like that their teachers communication well or teach well effectively in online, real-time lesson. I think in the interview, one of the students said, he said, "Oh, this teacher is my favorite. He was very funny in the face-to-face lesson, but somehow that when they come to online, they become very noisy, less interesting." And also, I would like to share the first finding that from the questionnaire. Let me look, yeah, here. As expected, all the hypotheses are supported. What that mean? That means that the least satisfaction can predict the student engagement. There are some interesting findings. The perceived relatedness is the most important predictor. For example, teacher can get more feedback from their student on their teaching if they make good connection with their student. This is very different from the majority of the studies. Majority of the studies that suggest that the autonomy is very important. Actually, personally, I'm not surprised because the finding may be because of the unfamiliar remote learning experience. And also, I think this is the main benefit of in-person schooling. Students go to school to connect with their teacher and classmate. So I think it's interesting that the perceived relatedness is very important. Then let's look at some more number. Look at this bar chart. You can see that the student actually got more support from the teachers. It's normal. I would say in Hong Kong, most of the students, they learn the content or did the exercise that given there by the teachers. And they also expect that the lack of support from curriculum and technology. This may indicate that our existing curriculum and our technology do not address their basic needs. This means that they don't make them happy. So I would say that it's very interesting that they actually feel they felt more freedom when they learn with their parents. I guess the parents at home, they may not be clear that what their children have to do for their learning. So it is the question here. So how? There are also, because I also did some interview. I would like to share that what they said in their interview. First of all, I would say that all of them believe that our teacher actually also work very hard to make sure that the student, their child, behave very well. For example, parents and teacher concern. The main concern is if their children complete all the assignment, have they attended online lesson, how many marks they got. So actually, students have very similar view. Some of them said that they just want to submit something to respond their teacher request. Actually, basically, just tick all the boxes. And also the teacher, the student also said that most of the learning material are basically another, say digital version of classroom teaching. The Zoom, the real-time lesson, and also the learning video, basically is a black box in classroom. Some of them say that, oh, why do the teacher have to say it again? You actually show it in the textbook. And then, yes, they just want to see that it's another version. And then they also say that they are not really simulation. In the interview, the students say that when they learn video, sometimes they just fast forward and jump to where the answer is. They actually skip it. They don't really go for all the watch all the video. And then it's also very interesting. The student said, they have a lot of idea that how they can learn better in the remote learning, but somehow that they don't feel comfortable or to share this idea with their teachers. So, and then both of the parents and students, they actually rely on teacher input. Thought that school and teacher take most of the responsibility. And some parents said, they actually based on the material, teacher material to support their kid. Without the material, it seems that their children have nothing to learn at home. I think it's because teacher often drives student to learn, and the student learn what the teacher believe in Hong Kong situation. So, however, our teacher actually have different view. They believe that self-regulated learning and also digital skill are the essential in remote learning. So it is what they said, but I just want to, there are a lot of data there. I would like to use this slide, this diagram to summarize the finding I just talked about. So actually this diagram is also our current student learning experience. So you can see that our teacher, the bottom corner, right corner, our teacher tried very hard to teach our kid, deliver the best practice, the best content, and then our parents believe that it is their teacher job, to keep their children learning, but sometimes they may fail, struggle to support their kid in the home learning. Sometimes it may cause some conflicts between parents and teachers. We want our kid to manage their learning independently, but our curriculum, teaching, technology do not encourage it. Maybe they don't encourage it and also support it, just like the box in the diagram. It's more likely that we set a fixed boundary for our students and restrict their learning, put this box there. We in a way that we say, oh, you have to learn by yourself independently, but actually maybe our environment basically just, all we did is just put a box there. And so, of course, in the time of COVID, the remote learning, we have a lot of challenges, but there are two major challenges I want to discuss in this talk. The first one, I would say that our curriculum is outdated. During the pandemic, our teachers urgently adjust their teaching, explore a new technology, change the school timetable. I would say that most of the curriculum or the teaching method, they originally decided for the classroom teaching. So they actually fit the remote learning or technology-focused environment? It's always a big question for me. So another challenge is we always, when it comes to our children learning, we rely on teacher effort and input. Even though our parents, parents want to give some support, they have no idea how they can help, what they can help at home. We need to have better curriculum support to facilitate parents' involvement, so that our parents can better communicate with the children and teacher. There's another support that I would like to look into it is the digital support, because most of our e-learning environment don't support support the basic need. So we know the challenges. So what can we do? So COVID at the end, some data they will go. But online learning will always be here. So how can we? What kind of experience that we can give our students? So I would say that last decade, last 20 or 10 years, many education systems, they reform their curriculum, say that, oh, we have to develop our children 21st century skill. The curriculum focus on the importance of self-regulated learning. So I think I can say in Hong Kong, last 5 years, all their film, the major film that in school, they all talk about self-regulated learning, self-directed learning. But to achieve to do that, many school or teacher, they do a lot of training. Okay, teach them how to learn by themselves, teach them how to set learning goal, do some reflection. Sometimes some school, they also focus on their student digital skill. But this kind of training tend to be knowledge-based. Are they effective? Are they enough? It's always a big question for me and also this study. Again, what we learned from the COVID helped me to rethink what school education should be. I would say that this study suggests that we should begin to provide a supportive e-learning environment to nurture this kind of skill. I mean, in a way that, in other words, is we should make e-learning a positive force in education. E-learning is not a tool, but an energy source to motivate student engagement. In this presentation, in this talk, I will want to talk about 5 support. How can we do that? So there's 5 support here. This diagram shows them how they relate to our student learning. So the first one, teacher support, I would say that it's still our main teacher is very important in our school. They still are the main force. But in the current practice, I can see that many teachers, when they teach online, they still do like what they did in classroom. So basically, we have to strengthen our teacher skill, like for example, the digital communication skill, how they communicate with their kid online, and also, for example, how they present material using multimedia. And let's talk about digital support. I would say that because teacher support, I would say that we are more familiar with. Digital support, in most of the environment I study, many of them just upload one resources for our student to learn. So offering only one resources is likely to restrict our student choice. I would say that our students assume that the resources cover everything. Okay, I finished it, done. But I think we should, and also, one resource is sometimes doesn't really cater all of them. So we should use multiple resources to promote autonomy. Students need to choose the appropriate resources for their own learning, so then they can enjoy the autonomy support from the resources. The second, how can we make our students feel more competent? We should give them opportunity to engage, to interact with the learning material. For example, we can put the Google Translator there, and also use mathematical graphical calculator for mathematics subjects. And also we should develop some AI-driven e-learning platform for their personalized learning. The last one, how can we support related this? We should help our students connect to the e-learning environment. That's when once they log in, they will love it. So most of the e-learning system, they look the same, familiar. They're cold, loving, personal. But in school, the classroom is a place that belongs to our children. They feel comfortable. After recess, I go back to my classroom. So we should decide the e-learning environment for their own class. For example, we can upload some personal pictures or class picture to create a warm and personal experience. So I would say that another one is curriculum support. Most of our curriculum documents are developed for teacher professional. So they're a lot easy for parents or students to read or understand. How can our students and parents plan their learning? How can they, learn by themselves or independently? In this talk, I would like to give some example. How can we develop some document that are accessible for parents or students? I would say that to support autonomy, we should provide a different learning pathway. For example, we can show them the knowledge structure or indicate how relevant and how relevant to them. And also, how can we make them feel competence? We can use level up exercise. I can see that I come across. I studied one e-learning system. I think they have different levels. They are using like 7 levels for a subject. So they actually have different levels. And also they use color, like for example, and then I remember like yellow, green, blue, and at the end is a rainbow. That means they add up for a language lessons. And also, and then how can we make our students feel more, enjoy more? So I would say that we should introduce more group work and also project-based learning, because technology is one of the advantage that advantage of using technology is the lecture itself is facilitate collaboration. And the last one is parent support. So I would say that because with the curriculum and digital support, our parents know better, they understand better about our children learning situation. So at least they actually can communicate with communicate with their teacher. Because I remember that one of the interview that they talk about. So they actually, the teacher might be the school call the parents, but they actually just come up say, hello, how are you? Are you okay? But actually the parents have low material to talk about. You know, they are not clear that with what they have to learn, what they have to talk about. So they actually, that call becomes kind of like a high and by call. So actually it's not that, not that constructive. And also I want to use this diagram to explain the idea from the idea of support from a practical perspective. So you can see that this diagram, inside they have asynchronized. What's that mean? The e-learning system or after school. Asynchronized, that means that it's a classroom or the soon, real time like now. So what we can do is, you know, our teacher have a lot of face-to-face resources. They just put it in the asynchronized. And then use a curriculum support because they have some guideline, and then they can select or create some material that promotes self-regular learning, and they put it in the asynchronized. So it's very similar. You know, in school, we have a teacher teach their kid in the classroom. They usually like have a lot of hand-on, and then after school, the children support each other. You know, they solve their homework problem after school in the playground. So you can see that in this diagram that our teacher actually can focus the support in the asynchronous lesson, and then let the children support each other in the e-learning system. So at the end, I would like to use my story to summarize what I just discussed. You know, I took this little boy to a giant jungle gym. When we first got there, we were both scared. Can he do it? It looked very advanced. But once he put on all the gear and then get some advices or guidance from the coach, the engagement from me and his friends, and then he chose the activities to do. And finally, complete all of them, all the activities. I think in this picture, he was talking about, I will never give up. I will never give up. So I believe that, you know, he feels safe, comfortable, capable. It is his choice. So this energy has to keep him going. Actually, myself, it was very advanced, but actually he finished it. It's very interesting. So myself at the end, I would say that what we learned from the COVID or the remote learning, of course, we can create a better learning experience for our children. But also, I would say that our current policy maybe we need to be revisited to see what we can do better. For example, we should develop some curriculum policy for technology-focused environment. That means that at the moment, most of the practices, technology is just kind of accessory. The second one is e-learning policy. E-learning is not a tool, I think, in school. We should incorporate lead support. So another one is teacher is the most important role in school. So I would say that we should look into it and then help our teacher to better support our children need. The last one is I'm very interested because in this study I found that we should help our students to speed up and also help our teacher to facilitate the student, to that kind of agentic engagement. And then it's what I want to share today. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you very much.
Thank you again. Our next speaker is Professor Catherine McBride. Professor McBride is Choh-Ming Lee Professor of Psychology at the Chinese University of Hong Kong. She specializes in children's literacy development and impairment around the world. She's a very prolific researcher and has published and edited books on reading in Chinese and HKIAPS, the various scripts used in India and elsewhere, as well as global early education. Professor McBride has an ongoing longitudinal study of children's Chinese, English, and mathematics development in Hong Kong, and has adapted the study to online testing given COVID-19. Her topic will be Tales from the Digital Divide, Online Educational Conundrums. Let's welcome Professor McBride.
Thank you so much. I'm going to share my screen in a minute, but first I just want to, well, maybe I should, yes. First I want to just talk a little bit more about my background. I'm a developmental psychologist who studies reading, and my students have come from a lot of different places in the world, Iran, Malaysia, Zambia, and the Philippines in particular. And so some of what I might say today is hopefully going to be a little bit cross-cultural. I also, a couple of years ago, with an NGO in the US called World Learning, we launched a massive open online course, which was viewed by about 10,000 people in 100 countries around the world, mostly teachers and parents. And then again, background-wise, for some of the research that we've been doing, we started something that we call Word Sword English. It's a quick and dirty measure of 10 minutes to see how adults and children read in English. So there are lots of different experiences I've had, and most recently, we're doing a study in Cebu in the Philippines, where we're trying to take what we've done before, which is training of teachers and parents for young children's mathematics and literacy learning, and put it completely online. One other thing I want to say is that I've just done a lot of grant reviews related to ed tech in different countries. And so a lot of what I'm going to say today might seem a little scattered, but it's based on different ideas that I've had based on these experiences. So here is my PowerPoint, and I, again, as a developmental psychologist, I want my focus to be kind of all kinds of aspects of environment and what we should be thinking about for education worldwide. And it's a bit of a mess right now, so we need to think about the challenges. I really appreciated Professor Chiu's talk, and I think he's very positive and uplifting. And I think that's how we need to be, because the tools related to online schooling are a challenge, and we really need to incorporate them, but also realize what the challenges are and work on those. I should do full view, sorry. Okay, so I want to highlight different aspects of education in families, students, teachers, and schools. And so some of the ideas I think here are just from different sources. Family, uncertainty about the future. I think worldwide, we have gotten used to the fact that we may have to have education online, and then students may go back to school, and that may flip-flop from one to the other over time. I think this is quite stressful, especially for parents and teachers in planning what they're going to do, but it's also stressful for the children. I think Fanny's point about relational aspects is extremely important. There is somebody who wrote a book named Dr. Justin Reich, and he wrote a book called Failure to Disrupt. It's all about education and edutech, because everybody was thinking that lots of approaches to educational technology would be revolutionary. So far, that's kind of failed. And one of his main points about why it's failed, why MOOCs often fail, why in primary and secondary school it's really difficult to do this kind of online schooling is because of relationships. Teachers need to build up relationships with students, and students need to build up relationships with one another. And that's a big motivating factor in all we do and all we learn. And without that, it makes it much more difficult to focus and concentrate. So the social and the cognitive together. Okay, uncertainty about the future, but also access issues. For a need for a specific device or Wi-Fi access is a very big deal around the world. So for example, in the research that I've done in Cebu, we've targeted the poorer families, and a lot of them absolutely don't have a computer. Most of them do have a phone, but their access to Wi-Fi is very spotty. It often is the case that they have to go somewhere and purchase some time to be on the internet, and this is really not very easily sustainable. I have to say also in our own research, when we've done studies on this reading of English that I mentioned, when we've tested it online as compared to face-to-face, because we've been doing this ongoing study, so we've had the opportunity to try it both ways, we find differences. But in addition to that, we've started to look at, does it matter for your performance whether you're doing this test on a computer or on a phone or on a laptop? And the answer is it really differs. Your performance really differs. Kids who can only access online courses using a phone tend to be very much disadvantaged. We also know that some families have no access at all, and this has been a big deal in terms of rural and urban divides around the world. I've seen articles on this in Bolivia, in China, and in pretty much every country. So access issues may be one of the biggest dilemmas. Also, technical issues. So families have the need to support their children. But one thing we know from other research, I've done some research on peer relationships, cyberbullying, and cyber friendships. And what we know is that often the children, and definitely the adolescents, have a lot more knowledge of the technology than parents. This is a challenge already. But for example, in Hong Kong, we have kindergarten children, 3, 4, 5 years old, who are getting online courses. And they aren't very good at the technology, and neither are their parents sometimes. So that's another challenge. And then parental engagement is absolutely required for kind of monitoring what the children are doing and for being able to help them to access what they need to access. What about the students? Same thing in terms of technical issues. Students need to adapt to new software and technologies, and sometimes that's hard. They may be motivated by certain technologies and master them very quickly, but there are other technologies required just in school that they may not be as motivated to learn and may need some supervision. There's a lot also about distraction and time management. One article I saw was from the UK, and they talked about the fact that there are households, at least 10% and at least 40 to 50% in London, for example, that where the kids have no access to a garden or an outside facility where they can really run around. And if you're in Hong Kong, you know space is at a tremendous premium. A lot of kids have very, very little space. They live in a very small apartment often. And then, getting outside time is essential for all of us, but particularly for young children. And so recess in school is very important. And when we don't have that, because we're doing online learning, it's more difficult. It's also difficult to ask, for the children to ask when they're having difficulties understanding requirements and expectations. Developmentally, one of the most important things that we acquire over childhood is metacognition. thinking about thinking. And a big aspect of that is knowing when you do not understand something and then speaking up about it later. And young children don't necessarily have that. So they may have trouble knowing when they don't understand, and teachers' monitoring of them will not be as good, and so that also causes a problem. Lack of peer support and in-person interaction, as I said, is one of the biggest ones, and Professor Fanny Cheung mentioned that in terms of relationships. Because if you don't have those relationships, you're less secure in asking for help and in getting help. And then I already said lack of physical exercise because of lack of space. For teachers and schools, again, there are technical issues. Speaking as a professor who got some very good instruction on Zoom from CUHK, it wasn't natural for me. We all needed to adapt very quickly, and the support for this has not necessarily been as strong as we would like. It's been an emergency situation. Also, student monitoring. Also, if any of us are professors, we can also attest to that. When we teach and everybody turns their screen off, this is very difficult. We are used to looking at faces and thinking, oh, that person looks puzzled, that person looks bored. I should maybe change my behavior as a result. And here we have much less access to student monitoring. Some students are embarrassed about what the backgrounds are in their homes, and they may turn off their screens for a variety of reasons, and there's really nothing that we can do to get them to turn them on again. There are things, but it's difficult. The whole situation is more difficult. As Dr. Chiu mentioned very clearly, lack of training in online teaching. We simply haven't been doing that. That's not what we're used to. And so how to make best use of resources is something we need training in, and this has happened so quickly all at once. And finally, lack of ability to gauge emotional or cognitive responsiveness to the class as a whole. Factors contributing to individual differences in academic achievement include all of these, and I guess one of the main points I would like to make is that these are a confluence. All of these things influence one another. So when we talk in terms of developmental aspects of learning, we can't just think of one thing or the other. They influence each other. So household size. If you're living in a very, very small space, it's harder to concentrate. Noise will influence you. The TV from another room. You can't have any space to yourself to sort out your documents. Availability of support in the family. One of the most important aspects of this pandemic, I think, in the news has been the fact that women have had to do disproportional amounts of supervision of children, and so how they interact with their own work, if they have outside work, and their families has been very stressful. Are parents available? Our siblings? In Hong Kong, we have often the kind of upper middle class in terms of socioeconomic status. People sometimes have helpers, domestic helpers. Another really important source of support for families is grandparents. But how can they support? Grandparents, for example, may know a lot, but they're not as good technologically in general. Okay, so that's an important aspect. Parents' attitudes toward their children's learning is important. What their focus is, how much they can devote to this. Parental education level, for example, English in Hong Kong. One aspect of research I can speak to very directly is the following. When we look at Chinese, mathematics, and English performances in children in Hong Kong, even at age 4, we find differences between families that come from relatively richer and poorer groups in English learning, and it gets more divided over time. So those kids with more resources, whether their parents are better educated and know some English, or can hire a tutor, or can just provide some English environment, those children do better. So education level is very important, and as is family income in general. Dr. Justin Reich talks about this idea that is also important in reading research. It's called the Matthew effect. It comes from the Bible, and the basic idea is that the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. And sadly, that is also part of this digital divide. It's increasing because if you already have had better experiences, that makes you less afraid and more willing to engage in additional experiences. And also you have more resources in terms of computers. Children's learning and motivational abilities also matter. SEN stands for Special Educational Needs. Some children feel even a little better working at home. For example, those with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, some of them report feeling that working from home is doing them good because they can structure themselves better. The vast majority of children with learning problems would rather be in school. They're getting the physical school, they're getting more structure that way. And just general teacher and school support. So there, again, are these interactions among variables. Yuri Bronfenbrenner's ecological systems theory, which talks about environment in different levels, highlights this. So children's, parents, and teachers' needs and abilities will influence children. As I said, some children with special educational needs may thrive, but a lot of others are falling further behind. Household environment. There was a really tragic incident that happened a few weeks ago in Hong Kong where a mother was tutoring her 7-year-old boy and just got extremely emotionally overwrought and tried to kill him and ultimately killed herself. He survived, but it was during a homework incident. And it probably was related to many, many things over time. You can never talk about a single reason for any incident, but finances was one, financial struggles during COVID. And the other is called relational lockdown. Some of us talk about childcare at home is something that is constant in COVID. If you have young children and they are learning from home, you never get a break as a parent. And in these small spaces where you can't really escape, it's very, very stressful. Government support is also important. Resources and guidance from the government on how to learn and how to teach online is very important. And again, physical space, devices available, and access to Wi-Fi. So these are my recommendations and suggestions. First of all, policy-wise, around the world, if we're really going to do online teaching and learning, especially for younger children, we need computers for all families. Computers, not phones, computers, larger screens. We need additional support for teachers. Aid to teachers, instructions on effective online practices. So as much support for the teachers as is possible. Also teletutoring. We talk about telehealth. There's also teletutoring. And a lot of people need this kind of support, especially I would say grandparents could benefit a lot as well as parents in their support for kids. We have a lot of university students or even secondary school students who might be willing to help and could volunteer and give people like help on, on and off all of these aspects of online learning. We also need greater focus on rural connectivity needs worldwide. The urban-rural gap needs to be made smaller. And finally, at a very broad level, we need more gender equality campaigns. For example, in a UNICEF publication from 2017 on online relationships and online learning for adolescents around the world, they cited a statistic that 1/3 fewer girls as compared to boys had access to the internet and to online resources. So there's lots of need for gender equality support. COVID has done a lot to reverse gender equality. So thank you. Please feel free to write to me. I'm in the psychology department at CUHK if you would like a follow-up on any of these points. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor McBride. Thank you for summarizing your extensive research experience so succinctly to highlight the factors and issues that we need to tackle with online education and the digital divide, and highlighting the importance of support. At this point, let us turn to our discussant, Professor Anthony Fung. Professor Fung is currently the director of the Hong Kong Institute of Asia Pacific Studies and the Center for Youth Studies at the Chinese University of Hong Kong. He specializes in creative industries and cultural policies, popular culture, youth culture and cultural studies, global media and communication. He serves as the editor-in-chief of Global Media in China and the associate editor of the International Journal of Cultural Studies, among other editorial board positions in various academic journals. His forthcoming book, entitled Cultural Logistics, will soon be published by Sage. Let's welcome Professor Anthony Fung.
Thank you, Fanny. Also, thank you, Thomas. Thank you, Cami, as well. I largely echo with Professor Chiu and Professor McBride's feeling about online education and teaching. I myself is also a teacher, so that's why we can like share more same feelings with others. First of all, let me respond to Professor Chiu's presentation. Professor Chiu emphasized the challenge to students and teachers based on the ACR model. I think you make the point. Current curriculum and practices are not originally designed for remote learning. In the past, when like in the university, say we went through meeting for like assuring like teaching quality, we actually focus on the knowledge or what we are going to teach. And in fact, it's not about teaching format or impact. Yeah, I would like to respond on this point in the capacity of a teacher. As a teacher, I also use Zoom for teaching. Basically, for all those teachers who are with us in these webinars, actually we spend more time with preparing lectures. I also make videos, extra videos for student learning. And we try to create more interactive like engagement on Zoom, although the effect is very much limited. So the challenge for a teacher is not about what to teach or not the teaching content, but the engagement, interaction, or the perceived relatedness, as Professor Chiu mentioned. I think like without relatedness, Professor McBride mentioned the point, the student actually don't respond, they turn off the screen. Even they are on the screen, they may not actually focus. We, as a teacher, like on the other side of, say, of Hong Kong, so we may not know what they are doing actually. So the kind of engagement or interaction is the key. The question is how to engage them more, I think. I am like, as Fanny has just introduced me, I'm more interested in like youth culture. I think from a youth culture point of view, I think as a researcher, also as a teacher, I think the key point is to know them more, know the youth culture more. And we find a common interesting point like between us and the students. Knowledge is not like for us is something like, say, or for us we teach something from textbook or something like that. But for students, they they want something that are not separated from their daily life. So that's why we need to do some application or to use some more like common daily example so that they can relate it to their daily life and have more applications. So my like short answer to Thomas' idea of engagement is that like understanding youth culture is a prerequisite about understanding the learning and learning pattern. We all know like the youth nowadays has really low attention span. They want care. They need encouragement. So how do we encourage them? Say, can we start a topic with them to know what kinds of games that they are playing, the online games, to know what they are actually talking about in their daily life? Probably we can start with that, a kind of like understanding more the culture. And the second point about engagement is about emotion. Actually, Professor McBride also mentioned that learning is more than a cognitive dimension. There is also the emotional dimension. We know that nowadays, the resilience of youth is really, well, it's relatively low, as we can see like on the media, on the newspaper. And the motivation to learn is not high. So for me, I think like from a perspective of a teacher, I think learning is equal not just to knowledge, but knowledge plus caring. With caring, we make them understand later the importance of knowledge. Of course, parents at home or teachers at school could help. And we could actually provide them with more emotional support. Like in the end, like Zoom or remote learning is just instrumental. We need other kind of like policy that actually could enhance this kind of more emotional support. Then actually is also related to the second presentation. There is Professor McBride's presentations on digital divide, which is definitely true. I want to talk about the digital divide for my second role. I have a second role to play. Besides a teacher in university, I'm also a school manager of a secondary school in Hong Kong, in Taipo. I want to use my real scenario. We observe the digital divide, and that's why in fact we are trying to help. We provide some students with resources. In Hong Kong, I think we are relatively blessed. For most, at least in university or in secondary schools, we are quite resourceful. Say, for example, when there's no Wi-Fi at home for students. In fact, in the school that I'm responsible, we actually, during the pandemic, we opened up a lot of classrooms for individual students, like they can come back to school. So a student can go into one single empty classroom with good Wi-Fi. The students can also come back to borrow iPad when they don't have resources, no computers. These are like ways of reducing digital divide. I think given the specific context of Hong Kong, the kind of say this kind of hardware thing is relatively soft, and we can at least tackle them. And again, then you relate it to my point on engagement as I talk to respond to Thomas' point. What is more important is not the hardware. It's the software. What I call software is the culture of support. The support from parents, teachers. So what I propose is not just a menu, it's a really fixed menu for support. the support, as Professor McBride mentioned, the support might not be uniform. There are individual differences. Say I come from a media background, like dated back to the 60s. We have like a proven research result talking about so-called knowledge gap. The knowledge gap is the same as the digital divide. The knowledge gap between like people of different socio-economic status. Say people have studied the kind of educational video. Say for example Sesame Street. The students can all watch Sesame Street like in the Western context. But in fact they always find that the learning curve is different for different ones. The socio-economic status is a key factor. Those who are relatively richer and with the educated parents can always learn much more. So that's why I think like COVID-19 is a time for us to rethink about our society. I always call this a kind of risk society. A risk society doesn't mean that the poor, the needy, or the minority have more risk. It just means that they don't have resources to tackle this kind of risk. So I guess as a researcher, also as a teacher, we need to have a second role. The role is not just to teach, but have intervention. We may need some intervention or extra help for students who actually learn less, or they have more challenges. And I guess, as I mentioned earlier, what we need is a kind of caring for students, so that they can trust us, they're more comfortable with learnings. All this we need is some kind of personal time with students. I know that like we have a lot of like audience today. There a lot of them might be educators as well, and at least most of them are a lot of parents like working. I think nowadays parents, I'm also parents. Parents are very occupied nowadays, and teachers are also very occupied. They're like we besides teaching, we have a lot of administrative workload. So I guess besides what I want to say is there's personal there's a personal intervention from a micro point of view, but there's also structural intervention. We may need some kind of new educational policy, say for example, to free up time, at least for teachers, to care for students. There might be some structural changes in terms of working patterns. Like say, for example, besides working from home, companies can also offer like more flexible working time hours so that parents can spend more time with like kids learning. I suppose there should be more discussion on policy recommendations to enhance this kind of learning environment so that we can have more engagement, more interaction with students. And we need the input from all of you. Okay, maybe I stop right now and hope to hear from you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next webinar will be on February 22nd, and it will be about corporate social responsibility during COVID-19 pandemic. It's an important topic for all organizations, whether in whatever sector, and COVID-19 has raised certain challenges, and as organizations, we have to consider what our social responsibilities should be. Our main speaker will be Professor Sora Kim from the School of Journalism and Communication at CUHK, and we have invited two international discussants, Professor Xiaojing Sheng and Professor Kang Hun Sung, both from the United States. And I'd like to invite you to join us again on February 22nd at our next webinar. Thank you for joining this session and for your active participation. Bye.